Hey there, my name is Casey Diovin, and welcome to part 1 of the dubstep tutorial in Fruity Loops. Today I'm going to be talking about making the beat, which is going to be the foundation of the rest of your song, so we need to take care of it and make sure it's a good foundation. So you'll see here I've got my drums in order. I have a kick, a snare, a couple hi-hats here, just a couple different hi-hats, and then some random percussive sounds. Now these are just sounds that I like. I kind of quickly put them together. You'll probably end up with different sounds, and that's all right. It's whatever you like for your track, and it shouldn't hurt the tutorial if you're using something else. In fact, it'd probably make it better that you learn using your own sounds and not duplicating the sounds that I've got. That's why I haven't included any sounds for this tutorial. But before we jump into making the beat, I'm going to go ahead and explain. Our tempo here is 140 because that is the standard tempo for dubstep. Usually it'll sit about 140 so that other artists can, when DJs go to mix your track, it's easier for them to mix and match the tracks because they all have relatively similar tempos. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, or to the standard. A lot of the new subgenres, such as like bro step, they tend to go above. I'm not sure if they go below. They probably do, but not often. It's usually above 140, but typically dubstep artists will stay at about 140. So that's what we're going to do today. Before we actually go in and add any drum patterns, I want to show you the EQing that I'm going to use here. I've gone into Fruity Parametric EQ 2. I've right-clicked here between these arrows, and I've clicked here on 20 hertz plus 18 kilohertz, and that'll give you a 20 hertz to 18 kilohertz cut. You can see here that the first band is a steep high-pass filter set to steep 8, which are these 4 little dots. That just means that it cuts it off really sharply. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise the frequency of this first band here up to about 64. It doesn't have to be exactly 64. If you've got a kick that hits sharply at about, let's say, 75, raise it up to 75, kind of look at where your drum is hitting in the mix. That's why I love Parametric EQ 2 for that. And you can see here, it hits pretty well with the EQ that I've put in there. I'm also going to take the band 4 type and change it to peaking. And I'm going to give it a steep 8, which is the 4 hollow squares or little pixel looking things. I'm going to bring that down, and I'm going to raise the frequency up to about 700 and just kind of close that in a little bit. And now we have a little bit of room here at the 700 frequency where our lead can sit later on. And if we don't need to have it so steep, we can go ahead and pull it up a little bit, and we can do that later. I've got 2 parametric EQs here. The last one doesn't do anything. I've got it cutting off at about 64, but besides that, it's just so I can see where the sound is hitting. And that's after the compressor. So that's why I have 2 of them. You don't have to. But you do want to put your parametric EQ above the compressor, or any kind of EQing you do, put it above the compressor so that it's not working with those frequencies that you're wanting to cut out. And like we did with the kick drum, we're going to put an EQ here above the compressor on the snare. The compressor for the snare is also just the regular drums preset for the compressor. What we're going to do is we're going to give that the same kind of 20 hertz to 18 kilohertz cut. We did a peaking type for the band 4 with a steep 8 and just cut off around the 700 frequency. But I've also added in a high shelf here set to just a regular 2 setting, which is the 1 single solid dot. And I've raised it up just a little bit to get a little bit more of the, just so I can get a little bit more high end on the snare. And again, I have a second EQ, but this one, like the kick drum, it doesn't really do anything. I've also raised, and I should have mentioned this, I've raised the first band frequency up to about 180. And the reason I did that is because it's hitting pretty nicely at about 180, and anything below that we do not want. And the last thing you need to know about the snare is that dubstep snares usually get a good bit of reverb to them, and that kind of gives them room and a little bit of depth, plus you get that trailing effect. So I've got my low cut here set to about 180 where we cut it off with the high pass filter. The high cut I've got at about 6.0. You can lower it or raise it according to your preference or whatever snare you're working with. I think I'm going to lower it to 5.4. And same with the room size and all the other effects. You can kind of play with it and get what you like. Actually, I do like the smaller room size for this at the moment. So we're going to go ahead and keep that. And my hi-hats, again, just reverb on there. I've taken the parametric EQ, and I'm cutting these off about 300 or so. And that right there is just to get rid of some of the lower frequencies. And percussion, same thing. Raise it up a little bit. And then my percussion here, I've got another cut, about 700 kilohertz, just to take that out so the lead can sit there. Again, if we need to, we can raise or lower it more, kind of play it by ear once we get to that point. But for now, we can go ahead and just start working with what we have here. The beat for dubstep is actually in halftime. Halftime basically means that instead of realizing this kind of beat in 4 beats in 1 bar, instead of realizing the beat this way, it will actually run for 2 bars. So instead of this, we end up having a little bit of a longer beat, which is something like this. Which you'll notice is actually similar to hip-hop. A lot of hip-hop and rap uses this kind of beat. Now, instead of using the step sequencer, I'm actually going to go into the piano roll. And the reason I go into piano roll here is because dubstep uses velocity in its drums to kind of keep the groove going, to give it a bit of progression. Like this note right here will make a little bit lower, and you'll hear how that sounds in a second. I'm going to go ahead and put my snare. The snare, like I said, it's in halftime, so the snare will go on the 3rd beat in each bar. So you can see here what I've done is I've given it the regular pattern. We've got this one here on the 1st beat, and then the 2nd beat for the 2nd bar here. And I'm going to go ahead and throw in a kind of a sloppy kick right before the snare hits. And the reason for that is notes like that with the bass kick will actually give it a kind of a shuffle groove, and we want a kind of shuffle feeling. So it really changes the sound. You can hear when I play. It kind of takes the beat and makes it off kilter. So you can get away with a lot of stuff like that. Changing up where your kick is, making it a little bit offbeat. I'm gonna go ahead and put that regular halftime beat in for now. Now I've put my hats in here. I've put them on the second and fourth beat. But you can see sometimes, or a few places I've actually thrown them off a little bit, made them shorter, and also spread them apart a little bit. So I put two here instead of just putting one. And that kind of changes it up a little bit. But you can also see that I've changed the volume, the velocity on a few of these notes to kind of give it a more of a moving feel, almost as if, like I said, the beat is progressing forward with the song. And you can really play with your hi-hats a lot and try to find a decent groove. Generally, you will want the hi-hats to be more on beat and the kick to be the one to kind of go off kilter and go off beat a little bit. And that's really only because when the kick goes off beat, you really notice it. When the hat goes off beat, it can be used to good effect, but generally the kick is what can best utilize that off beat kind of shuffle feel. See, if I go ahead and put a hi-hat here, off beat, it doesn't have the same kind of weight as if the kick goes off beat. So yeah, generally, I mean, you can put your hi-hats off beat a little bit. That'd be fine. I'd say not excessively, though. Well, for dubstep, not excessively. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more, a few more hats in for more variety here.